Hello, my name is Francoise Molenaar, and this is That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. If you've been trying to get pregnant for a while and you feel like life has lost a bit of its spark in the process, then this is the podcast for you. Every week, I speak to experts and peers from around the globe to discover how you can connect to your feminine flow and stop trying so hard to conceive, and how to put some magic back in your life and your relationships. Are you ready to make life just a bit more effortless? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to a new episode of That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. My name is Françoise, and this is the first episode of season 3. It's also going to be the first episode that I'm posting on YouTube. I have about 70 videos waiting to be formatted and put on there. I don't want to be all perfectionist about it, but I guess I should just start uploading videos. That's the way to also expand my presence in the video sphere. So welcome. As I said, my name is Françoise. I'm a mindful fertility coach, a researcher, a journalist, a podcast host. And first and foremost, I am someone who's gone through a fertility journey myself. So as a quick recap, I started trying to get pregnant at 28. I had a miscarriage at 34. We were still trying on our own. I started fertility treatment at 36. I finally had our son Benjamin at 38, and then I had magical twins at 40, one IVF baby and one spontaneous pregnancy conceived in the same cycle. So it's been a long journey for me, over 12 years, if I look at both pregnancies as well. And it's been life-changing, not only because I had my babies, but also because along the way I realized that the whole fertility thing was showing me something bigger. So of course there was that desire for a baby, but I also realized that I needed so much more balance in my life, that I had always approached everything with this attitude of hard work and being super well prepared and being perfectionist about everything. And then when it came to trying to get pregnant, that no longer worked, right? Because you cannot force a pregnancy to happen. So that was a big lesson. And also I felt straight away that, or not, maybe not straight away, but along the way, I realized that I really needed to start working on the way I approached life and I approached that whole conception process. And in my case, also how important community was for me. So that's why I started the work that I still do today. Even before I had my own babies, I started bringing together women who were on a fertility journey, because I noticed from my own experience how important it is to be able to share about these things with other women, to hear about their stories, or to hear their stories, their experiences, and to really see that I was not alone. And I always say it's a thing that ended up healing me more than maybe it did the other women, because in one of my own groups, or in one of my groups, there was someone who was about to start IVF, and it's something I had said I would never do. But I was so inspired by the way that she took that on, not as this horrible thing that was happening to her, but just as sort of, okay, if this is the next step, then that's what I'll do. And I realized, oh, okay, so you can also look at IVF with that from that perspective. And that's when I decided to start. So I did a year of inseminations before, but because of that experience in my own group, I also embarked on IVF, and that's what ultimately resulted in my babies. So throughout that journey, I really instinctively felt that I needed to start living from a much softer, much more receptive place, not trying to force that pregnancy to happen, but really inviting it in, taking really good care of myself along the way. And it's I want to say a difficult message to, yeah, bring, because it's not something that you can do with your thinking mind. And I know, like, if I think back to myself all of those years ago, I was looking for the answer, right, with my rational mind. But the thing I discovered along the way is that the answers are not there. They're not there in your mind. It's really about working with your body, with your intuition. It's about building a practice where you have these daily moments of rest and reflection on how you want to be approaching this journey. It's about feeling that there is a different way possible, and slowly then starting to see that seep through in all aspects of your life. So that is really what this podcast is about. It's about showing you that it is possible to get pregnant from a place of love, trust, confidence, surrender, and that it doesn't start with thinking uh, about what that would look like, but about really feeling what that would look like. And this is a good moment. It's the start of the new year. I know we all have resolutions. I'm sure many of you also have fertility resolutions. And you must be familiar with the fact that most resolutions also fail. I looked up the research and I found that 23% of people have already given up on their resolutions by the first week of January. And then 43% of people have given up on their resolutions by the end of January. So it's easy to make them, it's not so easy to stick with them. And what can you do then to make those resolutions really stick and to improve your fertility and improve your overall well-being? I've listed a number of steps for you today that I'm going to walk you through, because there are like forming resolutions and in a sense also like creating a different outlook on your fertility journey. It is definitely possible. But it requires some thinking. It requires maybe some novel ways of relating with yourself, with your intentions. And it also requires that you really look at the resistance that's there. But let's start with the first step. So you know that you want to change the way that you look at your fertility journey, or maybe you feel that there's, that you could do with some more rest and relaxation, that there's just too much stress on you, or maybe you are just having a really hard time and you want to create some relief, or maybe you feel like you could really work with your body to improve your hormonal balance. All things that are, really useful. But where do you start then? And the first thing, if you want to be able to stick with these resolutions and also to really shift that perspective on your journey, is to pick something that relaxes you and that brings you joy. So we want to move away from all of those to-do lists and move away from forcing yourself to do things because they're supposed to be good for you or for your fertility. Because that's the way of the mind, the rational mind that comes up with these lists and these tick boxes and has all the research stowed away, has read all the books, knows all the articles that are out there, and then tells you like, okay, if you want to make this work, and here's the plan. This is what we're going to do. And I don't know if you notice it, but if I say this now, I can already start to feel my body tensing up because there's such a directiveness there and a forcing, and it's about perfectionism and reaching certain goals. So I immediately feel like, oh, but it's not a really nice feeling when you want to be open for the pregnancy. And that's the body is really key here. So, tuning into the body, we just looked at that sort of tightness, but can you also imagine what it feels like when you have a full body yes? Like, what is something that you absolutely love doing? When you think about it, how does your body feel? So you can just close your eyes for a second if you're not driving or operating heavy machinery. And just close your eyes and just really feel into your body and feeling like, what does it feel like when something just really ignites me? And it's such a different feeling. And you can feel the energy start to flow and you get excited. So that's the place that you want to start setting your intentions from. What is it that you really feel would be good for you? What is it that you feel? Not because your mind is telling you, but you really feel, okay, this is what I need to do this year. If I do that exercise, I feel that I actually have to start doing some physical exercise. I haven't done that in years. It's something like in my old me, the hard-working perfectionist, version of myself. I would go to the gym 3 times a week. Regardless of where I was at in my cycle, that was just what I did. Worked out for an hour. Um, I've allowed myself to stop doing that because I just didn't feel it anymore. I started doing yoga instead, so I do still have some um, muscles some there, but now I'm starting to feel that my body is telling me I need to do some weight training, I need to do some cardio because I'm getting out of shape. And it's not something that I'm telling myself because, this message would have been a valid message for maybe over the past 5, 6 years. I could have done with that exercise, but now I really feel it in my body. And that's such a good motivation to then say, okay, this is something that apparently is good for me right now. Although I don't know how to fit it into my schedule. So that's going to be the next step. Going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, I feel that maybe not a full body yes, but I do feel my body saying, please give me some exercise. So maybe if you already have a whole list of things that you want to be working on, don't fall for that perfectionism. Don't fall for all of the things you think you should be doing because you're afraid that otherwise you will never get pregnant. Like, really listen to your body and see, like, but where do I feel I need to do most work, or where do I get really excited? So maybe you know that you need to improve your eating habits because you're just eating very poorly. And we know like a good Mediterranean diet, works for fertility. Maybe you could then explore how you could adopt such a diet in a way that it doesn't feel restrictive, but really expansive. Because again, when I talk about restrictions, it's the same for me at least. I can feel my body starting to start to tighten. It's like all of these things I'm not allowed to do. So how could you adopt such a diet in a way that it feels expansive? Like what Mediterranean style foods do you actually like? Maybe you can take a cooking class to get some real joy from that cooking. Maybe go to a restaurant that fits that meal plan every week. Not have pizza, but good Mediterranean food and start to gather inspiration. So how can you approach it in a way that feels fun and where it's something that lights you up and you feel like, ooh, this is actually something that's going to improve my life. So important. So step one, really departing from that place of joy and feeling like, okay, this is something that I really need and that's going to help me and that give me energy also. Then step two, to really be able to implement something, you also need some discipline. And just came across a term in a podcast that was actually called blissipline, especially when it comes to, things like meditation or yoga. It's something that takes a bit of energy every day or every week if you want to implement a practice. But once you get there, that's what gets you that blissful state. So it's good that you pick something that really ignites you, but now you have to incorporate that action into your day in a way that it's manageable and that you don't forget about it and it makes it easy. Because if it were easy, you would already be doing it, right? With most intentions. So you need to create a little bit of that discipline to make sure that this becomes the new normal, that it becomes the new routine. Some practical things that you can do is to start with creating a small but non-negotiable commitment. So if it's something that you want to do every day, maybe start with only 5 minutes a day. Or if it's something once a week, then you can maybe pick a fixed time. Well, you should always pick a fixed time for your practice. But if it's something you're going to do every week, then pick a fixed day. Um, have a fixed time and stack this new habit onto an existing habit, like getting out of bed. That really helps you to incorporate it into your schedule so you don't have to think about it all the time. If you, for example, say, okay, I'm going to go to the gym after I get out of work, um, make sure that you have your gym bag ready in the morning and take it to work with you so you don't have to head home afterwards, like things like that. So you would stack it on that existing habit of getting out of work. You'll be able and ready to go to the gym straight away. Or if you feel like you want to connect with your partner and you really love dancing, then maybe you can book dancing lessons. So that's something that's already there every week. You've paid for it. It's a commitment. You can also tell your partner that's a part about creating an accountability mechanism that they're not allowed to let you skip a class. So you really have to go. One thing I love to do in the morning is to connect to my womb before I get out of bed. Because I know if I do that, my day, it just completely changes my day. Um, but it's so easy to start scrolling on my phone. So And when I do that, I also know that I am much more scattered throughout the day. Like it's not I'm not as mindful, I'm not as grounded. So for me, I know what brings me joy throughout the day is having that womb connection. I know that it's not easy because that phone is such an attraction. So okay, I told myself I want to have this non-negotiable commitment. It's only a couple of minutes a day, so that makes it really easy. Like first thing I do when I wake up is put my hands on my belly and just feel like, okay, what does it feel like in my womb? Is there anything that is needed here? And how do I want to start this day? And then I quickly go through the day in my head, in my mind, and also think like, okay, what's the energy that I want to bring to all of my activities? To be really mindful about how I'm going about my day. And I'm doing this every morning at a fixed time when I just wake up before I get out of bed. So it's there. And then I also know like I need to make sure that I don't bring my phone to bed with me because then the temptation is just too big. So maybe leave my phone in the bathroom so I can get to it straight when I come out of bed, but don't bring it there into the bathroom. Yeah, and then I just mentioned the accountability mechanism, but if you feel like you could do with some extra support, then it's good to see like, is there someone who can check on you, who, maybe you want to exchange messages with someone, have your partner on board so that you are not doing this by yourself, but there's also someone who's really sort of keeping you accountable for achieving this action. Okay, so we've had step one, really focusing on how you are setting your intentions and only setting intentions that really light your fire. Step two, adopting some of the healthy habits or using these small tricks to make sure that you make it easy for yourself to start implementing this intention. But something else is likely going to happen. The reason, and that's step three, recognizing your inner resistance. Because the reason that so many resolutions fail is not only because we haven't designed the practice to implement them, but it's also because there's often this inner resistance. There's a reason we're doing things in a certain way. And usually these are protection mechanisms, so things we picked up when we were really young that helped us meet our basic needs. Um, I've looked into the literature a bit more, and there's basically these five basic needs that all of us wanted to have met in our childhood. So that's attachment, knowing that you're safe, knowing that someone is looking after you. Um, Next to attachment, we have the need to know that our needs are being met, knowing that it's okay to have needs. And the third thing is that we want to trust other people. We want to know that people can be relied on for help. The fourth thing we really need is autonomy, so knowing that we're allowed to say no. And the fifth thing we need is love, knowing that we are loved for who we are and that we don't have to earn that love. So these are like the five core ingredients a safe for safe childhood development. And these needs weren't met. Maybe one or two, but many of these needs weren't met when we were younger. And that was maybe the times that our parents lived in, the way they were taught how to raise children. Um, and also, no one's perfect, neither were our parents. So, what happens is that we develop all of these strategies to deal with the fact that some of these needs weren't met. So, if your parents were sort of absent in terms of attachment, if they left you crying in a room by yourself, you develop this feeling that no one was there looking out for you. And what happens is that when you um, relate with people now, or you might even avoid like real relationships with people now because it's just so scary. What if they are not there for you? Or you might start clinging to them because you're afraid that they will leave you. This is like the big thing in relationships, romantic relationships, right? It's either fear of attachment or fear of being left. I can't come. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, so speaking is a bit difficult today. But you know what I mean. Um, if our needs weren't met, so if we weren't allowed to have certain emotional needs, if we weren't allowed to be angry or sad, um, what can happen is that you start losing yourself. in other people, that you are, you know, have this self-effacing behavior, that you don't matter. What matters is how well you take care of other people. Um, if you if there was never really someone there for you to help you when you needed it, it can be the case that you now want to be in control. If you were never allowed to say no, it's really difficult for you to start setting boundaries now. So there's all of these strategies that we develop to deal with the fact that, some of our basic needs weren't met when we were young. And when we start, or when we meet a challenge that is as big as our fertility journey and all of the challenges that you may be facing along the way with treatment, with hormones, with, the toll it takes in your relationships, I mean, this is going to touch upon these core wounds, these core childhood wounds that we have, because the journey is that big. And that's also beautiful, because that means that we also create an opportunity here to heal something that is much deeper within ourselves. So when you start trying to change your behavior, start your way of approaching life on this fertility journey, because the challenge is just so big and you don't know how to handle it any longer. You feel like you really need to start taking care of yourself, really need to start developing boundaries, or really need to invest in self-care. Well, that's difficult if you were never taught that it's okay to have needs or that it's okay to set boundaries. So this is going to require some really deep work. But once you do that, once you can work through those issues, that is going to set you up for parenthood, because you no longer bring these core wounds into your parenthood with you. It's going to make you so much more resilient. No, and even if that pregnancy never happens, you will have gained these tools, and these tools will also help you deal with whatever comes your way afterwards. So there is an opportunity here, but it all starts with recognizing that inner resistance. These core childhood wounds, they pop up in the form of resistance. When you start trying to do something in a new way, and your whole system says no, no, not gonna happen. Or maybe not so fiercely, but maybe your system starts making up excuses. Na, 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 na. Well, I've worked so hard today. I should take care of myself. There's no need to go to the gym. I should listen to my body. Can you differentiate between what your body is really telling you and what your mind is telling you as an excuse? And if you want to know how to make that distinction, it's always in the body. It's always in the body. Because when the body really wants you to do something, you will feel that yes. And when your mind is coming with these reasons, when there's something deeper going on, you will feel reluctance. You will feel discomfort. You will not feel comfortable. And that is such an important thing to notice, because once you start recognizing that resistance within you, you know it's time to start digging deeper, because underneath resistance, there is that space to grow. And once you start doing that, you are going to encounter what it's like to stop living from a place of fear, from a place of your needs not being met, and really start living from your power, saying, okay, this was maybe a strategy that served me for a while, but it's keeping me small now. It's keeping me in a mindset that doesn't help me. It keeps me treating fertility as something that I need to be on top of and doing research all night long, and it's exhausting, and I don't want to be like this any longer. Okay, so we go through the resistance, we allow it to be, and then we start experimenting with those new behaviors. So maybe it can be like not trying to get pregnant for a month, just to give yourself some space, and that's going to be super uncomfortable, right? Because you want to be in control, you don't want to miss out, maybe there's fear, you're going to end up alone because you'll never have a baby. So, okay, you allow that to be, you allow all of those emotions to be, you watch them, and then you also see what happens during that month, and how good it is to have a 2 week wait where you're not doing any symptom, or the second phase of your cycle. It's, technically it wouldn't be a 2 week wait, but you're not doing any symptom spotting, and you allow yourself a glass of wine and you feel like, oh, this is what it's like to just be me. not this bigger thing, this bigger desire. I have a beautiful example that I wanted to share with you about my own journey. And it's about setting boundaries and how that created a beautiful experience for me and my husband, and also resulted in something so much bigger. So I'm one of those people who has a core wound around autonomy. So I can't remember this, but apparently I wasn't told that it's okay to say no. I wasn't allowed to set boundaries. And now that I was in fertility treatment, I realized at some point that I wanted to start setting boundaries at my clinic because I had gone through this whole process of starting to connect more with my body, with my womb, with my vagina. And I realized that I was starting to develop physical complaints because of the procedures. Because, it's a lot on your body when you have all of these ultrasounds and speculums inserted in you with the inseminations, with the not to speak about the egg retrieval, which is quite a surgery. Um, and I realized at some point, this is done in such a clinical fashion that there's not even time for me to relax and say, okay, I'm ready. So I really felt like I wanted to start setting boundaries during my transfers. And that was super difficult for me because I also wanted to be the good girl who was playing along with everyone. And, they are the doctors, they are the authorities. So I didn't want to be sort of blaming them for the way they treated me. But I also felt like this isn't good. I need to have a couple of minutes to really connect to my body before we start and tell my womb or my vagina, like, okay, this is going to happen and it's safe. It's safe. Even though it doesn't feel safe and strange and weird, you are safe. Um, so I would be so nervous. I remember my last transfer, I was so nervous sitting in the waiting room, thinking, okay, I'm going to be that difficult patient again. They are going to laugh at me over lunch. Oh, that stupid patient, because I also wanted to put on my own music and not have them talk throughout the transfer. I really wanted to connect with my husband, create our sacred space there. So on the one hand, I really felt that longing to create a beautiful moment, really be connected with my body. And on the other hand, I didn't want to be the difficult patient. And I was super uncomfortable. And with all the work I'm doing, I knew that I just had to be with the discomfort. And I also told my husband, like, I'm so uncomfortable right now. So I could be with that, breathe with that. And then at the moment that we entered that procedure room, I was able to recognize that, okay, there's a part of me that's always been taught that this is not okay, all of the things that I'm doing right now. And I'm going to do it anyway, because this is what I need. This is what is really good for me. So I told them all of the things. I told them I wanted to put on music. I told them I wanted to take a couple of minutes to relax before we got started. I told them I wanted to insert the speculum myself. They were okay with all of those things. And I started crying straight away once I got on the table with my legs in the stirrups. In part because it was a special moment. The music was beautiful. I was connecting with my husband. Also, the nerves were coming out. Um, so yeah, I started crying, but then I calmed down and we had that moment together, and we were completely elated when we left the room. Like, we really took back our moment, made it into something special. The doctors also told us afterwards. I was afraid, right, of that rejection, but they told me, no, we should do this with everyone. This was so special. We even calmed down ourselves. So there was a lot of value in that straight away. And maybe I had even planted some seeds, for others. Um, then the story got even bigger. I came home and I decided, because I also work as a journalist, that I wanted to write an article about this. So I started researching these medical procedures, the gynecological procedures. And I found out that it still gives me goosebumps, but I found out that the speculum has been developed by conducting experiments on black enslaved women in the south of the United States without anesthesia. And then I realized I was crying for a third reason. So there were the nerves, there was the special moment, but there was also that feeling of I am taking back my power, because this is something that women have always been subjected to. I could feel it while I was laying there. This is something that women have always been subjected to, especially minority women. And I am saying no, no longer. We are not going to treat me like a subject. I am in control here. Now, maybe that's also, I just mentioned, right? Wanting to be in control is also a response to some childhood wounds. Could be the case. But for me, no, that wasn't the case there. It was important to say, this is my body and I'm allowed to set boundaries. So I wrote that article. I did a survey with 1,500 women about their gynecological experiences, something which had never been done in the Netherlands before. Found out that so many women were having discomfort or pain or traumatic experiences even. And started a discussion about this. And women now bring that article to their doctors and tell them, look, I want to do the examination on my own terms. So I wasn't even healing myself. I also healed a much larger wound that was there in the collective by facing my fears, by daring to step into the discomfort and saying, okay, this is terrifying, but I know that this is what needs to be done. Should I tell you whether I got pregnant or not? So I also ended up pregnant. Yes, that cycle, which was the amazing outcome. Uh, I'm always a bit hesitant to tell you that because I don't feel that's something that was in my own span of control. So, I don't want to say like all of these things that did help me get pregnant. But of course, there was an even more beautiful outcome of this whole story. So, yeah, to recap, if you want to make the most of your fertility intentions this year, start by, picking intentions that relax you, that really bring you joy, that ignite you. Take practical steps to make sure that it's really easy to implement them, and start looking for that inner resistance and really celebrating it even when you see it. Seeing it as something that's giving you so much information about things that are no longer serving, and that by going into that resistance, really feeling what's going on, what it is that needs to be healed within you, you can then move through that and move to a much more grounded, much more resilient version of yourself. And it's not easy work. I totally understand that. I know that from my own experience, but yeah, I just feel that it gives so much hope to know that this is what is possible. Um, if this is something that you could use some guidance with, I'm actually starting a new group program, a 3-month group program at the end of January, January 28th. So this is a program that is really about creating that vision of inner softness and receptivity for yourself. That vision where you feel, you can connect to a feeling of ease and love within yourself, where you feel really nourished and open to receiving a baby, and where you're able to work through your physical, mental, and emotional challenges. So it's, if you know intuitively that, you want to do this differently, that you could do with such work, yeah, I would love to hold space for you and keep connecting you to yourself and your baby from the place of love, trust, and surrender. And in practical terms, what we'll do is that I will share a weekly guided practice, which is takes about an hour, where we, there's 12 weeks in this program. So we can look at all of the elements of your fertility journey. So your relationship with your cycle, with your womb, any emotional blockages, mental blockages, spiritual blockages. We can also look at your relationship with your partner, if you have one, to see if there's anything there that needs to be looked at. Your ideas about motherhood, what you're taking with you from your lineage, maybe any previous losses that you have had and how those still influence you today. We can look at how you approach conception or how you approach treatment, and if there's ways you can make that more flowing and more nurturing. If there's, if you find it hard to deal with the uncertainty of the process, how you can really surrender to the not being in control. So we're going to look at all of these different aspects. There will be one practice on each of these aspects. Um, Look at what is there, what you need to move forward from a place of softness and surrender, what you're ready to let go of. You could see it like having me as your personal cheerleader for those 3 months. I will also offer WhatsApp support throughout the week from Monday through Friday. So you can always reach out if there's something that you're struggling with, and I will just brainstorm with you. Like, what is it that you can do now to get yourself out of your mind and into that place in your body where you know what to do. Um, I'm only taking on 10 women so that we can really create a true community. There's also 4 live calls included where we create a space where we can share, exchange experiences, a safe space. You can also watch the replay if you don't feel like sharing or connecting. Um, in my previous rounds of this program, I've discovered how important it is to have that connection because it can also be such a lonely journey. So it can be so good to hear from other women how they are dealing with this. I remember one participant told me like she feels so much less ashamed because she now heard that so many other women are struggling with similar issues. So that made it also easier for her now to talk to others in her life about her journey, what she was going through. Um, yeah, the price is 499 euros. So I'm guessing that would be around $550. And if you sign up before Monday, January 15th, I'm also throwing in my online course, Cyclical Fertility, for free. So that means you will, for every part of your cycle, I've recorded a meditation, a guided practice, some journaling prompts, some information videos, so you can really make the most of each part of your cycle. Again, not from a goal-oriented way of perfecting your fertility, but really seeing, okay, where am I now in my cycle and what can I do to stay connected to myself, to my baby or that vision of my baby, to really open myself up for conception and stay soft and connected. If you want to sign up, you can find more information on thatfertilefeeling.com/healing-fertility. So that is thatfertilefeeling.com/healing-fertility. And I'll also put the link in the show notes so you can find it. So I hope this was useful. Let me know. Send me a message on Instagram at thatfertilefeeling or email me at francoise@thatfertilefeeling.com. Let me know what you thought of this episode, or even more importantly, write a review so others can find this. I don't have that many reviews yet, and it's very much appreciated, not only from sort of a commercial point of view that people know how to find me, but also I love hearing back because otherwise it's just me, broadcasting into thin air. So it would be so good to hear from you, uh, what you thought, what your main takeaway was from this podcast, what you're going to start integrating into your life. Yeah, give me some love. That would be so great. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. If you liked what you heard, then please head over to your preferred podcast player and subscribe to the show. It would also be great if you could leave a review and rating so that other listeners can find the show easily. And if you think that anyone you know could benefit from the materials on this show, then go ahead and share it with them. It would be much appreciated. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye, love.